Hi, and welcome back to our channel and to our last What We've Been Reading update for 2022. We have read really a lot of books here this year.
Yes, we have. And as always, we love sharing all of our reviews with all of you. So let's get started.
Okay, so we are going to start with a quick review of all the books that we've been reading for Advent this year, and then we'll move into our regular What We've Been Reading.
And for our Advent books, we have had quite a lot. We have devotionals, art books, Christmas stories, and we did actually manage to get through most of them.
Most of them.
Not all.
It's a big stack. So we're going to start with our two favorite books from this Advent. And the first one was Joy to the World by Ruth Sawyer. We originally picked this one up because there were a couple of saint stories in it that we were interested in, but this one really surprised us. It had a lot of wonderful poetry and different carols and Advent hymns in it. I mean, really joyful, happy, catchy things to read out loud or just to meditate on. So it was great.
And there was also another really sweet story in that book about an epiphany that the author spent in Spain and a young boy who she met whose family needed a new burrow. So no spoilers, but that was one of our favorite stories in there.
Yeah, that one was great on so many levels. It's worth tracking down a copy of this book just for that one story alone.
And then our other favorite was also Joy to the World, but this one is by Chris Stefanik. It was our Advent devotional, and it's not quite like any other Advent devotional we've ever done. And we made it all the way through with this one, which never happens.
Chris for the win. As Kate said, it's not your average Advent devotional. Chris has some very interesting insights. He really stresses how it's just a miracle that Jesus was even born. And then he walks you through how that plays out in our everyday lives.
So this one was definitely a win here. And if you missed it this year, then definitely put it on your list for next year. It is very good.
All right, then moving on to A Christmas Treasury. This was our continuation book from last year. Every year we read a few more selections from it, and we read some great ones this year. We read the St. Nicholas story from Hans Brinker and the Silver Skates, and then we also read the Christmas chapter from the Pickwick Papers by Charles Dickens. That one was so much fun.
So there were some legit Christmas stories that we read. Then there were some other stories that simply took place at Christmas and had nothing to do with Christmas at all.
Yeah,
so we had mixed feelings about some of those.
Yeah, some of those were a stretch. Like, this technically is a Christmas story, but maybe not. But that's how it goes. And the good news is we can take this one up again next year because there are plenty of stories left.
Next, we have our sort of replacement book. We were originally going to read Sundays Will Never Be the Same during Advent, but that wasn't quite the Advent vibe we were looking for, so we had to find a different book to put in its place.
So we wound up subbing in Waiting for Christ by St. John Henry Newman, and it has been very good. It is a daily devotional, and it goes all the way through Epiphany, so we're not quite done with it, but I think we're also going to make it with this one because it's definitely very good. He is, of course, an older writer, so his style is a little bit different, but then once you get used to that, it is all systems go. I would definitely read this one again.
So next we read Christmas Gift by Farrell Sams. This was kind of our impulse read. We found it at a library sale, thought it looked good. And he's just taking you through all of his childhood Christmases, growing up on a former plantation in Atlanta, Georgia. So he's talking about his family and all of their different Christmas traditions.
So it was a lot of fun to read. Interesting to read about how their Christmases changed as they went through the Depression, but I would have to say it's probably not going to ever be a classic.
And he threw a lot of people at you throughout the book as well, so it was very hard to keep track of everyone who was coming through.
Yeah, I would say that there are too many people and you couldn't really get attached to any of them. They would come and then they would go. But also, just for us here, I think this one suffered because we started reading it about the same time that we read that chapter from the Pickwick Papers. I mean, come on. I mean, Charles Dickens versus Farrell Sams. Who is going to win?
You can't compare.
So yeah, no comparison. Maybe that was unfair of us.
So lastly, we're going to talk about probably our least favorite of our Advent books, and that is Sister Wendy's Peace. it was not doing it for us.
No, yeah. Last spring we read Sister Wendy's Art of Lent and we liked that. But after about a week of reading this book, we realized, oddly enough, that most of the pictures in this book were ones that we had already seen in the Art of Lent. Sister Wendy?
What are we doing here?
Yeah.
Because some of the reflections also started to sound a little familiar. So that was interesting. We did make it through Peace, but we did not start the love book. We're not going there right now.
Yeah.
We'll save that for a later date.
Yeah, I think maybe we just need a break from Sister Wendy. I don't know. The pictures in this one, we already checked. They're definitely different. So maybe we'll give this one a whirl for Valentine's Day. But we did enjoy all the nativity art that we have been looking at in different picture books and online. And for me anyway, I think Giotto was my favorite.
So that is our recap of what we read during Advent. But now let's go ahead and take a look at some of the other books that we read in December. So my first book today is The Lost Dinosaurs of Egypt. And this is one that we're currently reading for school. And we're not actually all the way done with it. We're getting closer towards the end though. So I wanted to take this chance to talk about it. And this book is nonfiction. All of this is completely true. And it's sort of broken down into 3 different sections, I guess. The first section follows Ernest Stromer in the early 1900s. He was a scientist, a paleontologist, and we follow him down in the deserts of Egypt looking for bones and for fossils that he can preserve and take back to Germany to study. The second storyline follows a group of scientists decades later who are going back to all of Stromer's old sites to see what's left, see what they can find. They're hoping to make a big discovery. And those 2 are really interesting, don't get me wrong, but it's the sort of third section that made this book a challenge to read because the author likes to go off on long, rambly tangents about all sorts of different stuff, like rock strata, all the names of the different prehistoric time periods, paragraphs filled with the Latin names of different dinosaurs and fish. Unless you're really interested in that type of stuff, it's gonna go over your head. That's the experience we're having with it. I mean, never in my life have I wanted a blow-by-blow account of how Pangea broke apart, yet that is exactly what I got in this book. So I wouldn't say this book is for the average reader. Those first 2 storylines are interesting, but all the rambling, all the tangents, it hasn't worked for us. This has not been our very best school find. I think if you're really interested in geology and paleontology, you will like it. But for us, it's not working. We're going to leave it for other readers.
I am starting with a picture book, Drawing from Memory by Alan Say. I feel very strongly about this one, and I definitely wanted to share it with you. It's the autobiography of Alan Say, who is a talented writer, artist, cartoonist, and we love his books here. He wrote The Bicycle Man and How My Parents Learned to Eat. We have long been fans. This is a longer book. It's about 68 pages, and it tells the story of his life starting in World War II. He was living in Japan, so he talks about how that affected his family, and then also how he wound up living in Tokyo in an apartment by himself when he was only 12 years old. That gives me a mom heart attack. Anyway, he was there to go to school, but in reality, he had apprenticed himself to a Japanese cartoonist who is very famous named Noro Shinpei. So he went to school, but on the side, he was doing all this cartooning work, pursuing that as a career. And as you can imagine, his family was not exactly thrilled about it, but he did persevere, thank goodness for us. And the book is full of all of his wonderful illustrations and drawings. And there are even some nice pictures of his family. So the book is just full of fascinating detail. And I was actually very sad when it ended. I could have just kept reading. So I think this is a great book to add to your home art library, especially if you homeschool, or even if you're just looking for something fun and different to read. I definitely give it 5 out of 5 stars.
So the other book that I wanted to talk about today is Heir Apparent by Vivian van de Velde. So this one is the exact opposite of my other book. It is just light, fun fiction. I found it at a library sale, and when I read the back, I was very interested because the main concept of this book is a virtual reality game. So our main character gets gifted a run in a virtual reality game, and as you might imagine, she ends up getting stuck inside, and the only way to get out is to win the game. So it kind of has sort of Groundhog Day attributes to it almost, because every single time she dies in the game, she has to go back to the beginning and try to make different choices, find out new facts, get a little further, and then eventually, hopefully, beat the game. So this one is fantasy, but it's not like serious, dark fantasy. It's very fun, it's very light. I listened to the audiobook and it was good for several hours of just fun entertainment. So I think this would be good for middle school on up. It is short, but it is lots of fun and I would recommend.
This December, I also read The Golden Arrow, which is the story of the devotion to the Holy Face of Jesus. How Jesus gave this devotion to a Carmelite nun, Sister Mary of St. Peter, in a private devotion in the 1800s in France. So the goal of this devotion is three things. Jesus wanted to make amends to God our Father for all the blasphemies committed against his name, people taking the Lord's name in vain. Number two, he wanted to have it offered as reparation for everyone who was abusing Sundays, not keeping Sunday as a holy day of rest. And number three, he said it would be a powerful weapon in the upcoming fight against communism. The first half of the book is the autobiography of Sister Mary of St. Peter, and I have to say that I really liked her. She was funny. She's trying to be serious as a nun, but that definitely shines through her writings. The second half deals more with the revelations that Jesus gave her, and that's where I feel like the story got a little bit maybe repetitive. It could have been shortened because basically every chapter goes like this. Jesus talks to Sister St. Mary and says, hey, I really want you to go to the bishop and have this devotion to my holy face established. The devotion springs from Veronica wiping Jesus's face with her veil on the way to Calvary. So it's a beautiful idea. So Sister St. Mary says, great, I will do that, Jesus. Let me get permission to go to the bishop from my superior, Mother Abbess. Well, she would go and talk to Mother Abbess, who would say, nope, sorry, you can't go. So repeat that for about 30 chapters until towards the end, she finally gets permission to talk to the bishop's secretary. So he listens to her whole story and then says, yeah, great idea, but no, we're not going to do it, and quit bugging us about it. And then soon after that, Sister St. Mary dies. So yeah, that seems like a very sad story, but in reality, it's a beautiful witness, I thought, because she mentions in some of her last writings that Jesus gave her this job to do. He didn't say go out and be successful. He said, I want you to go talk to the bishop. I want you to be faithful and obedient and do what I tell you. And she said, hey, that is exactly what I did. So even though the devotion didn't take off in her lifetime, it wasn't long after that Pope Leo XIII got a hold of it and said, hey, yeah, this sounds like a great devotion. We definitely need to do that. So overall, I'm definitely glad I read it. Someday I hope to meet Sister St. Mary because I feel like we would get along. So anyway, I would probably give this one 4 out of 5 stars just because I feel like the second half maybe could have been condensed a little.
So there you have it. That is a look at our Advent/December reading.
So let us know in the comments how you have been doing with your December reading, and also let us know, are you a Sister Wendy fan, or have we scared you away from Sister Wendy? I have always liked her in the past. It was just funny that the two books were so similar.
So we hope you enjoyed today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.